Greetings, this is Change Radio News. Today is Friday, the 23rd of May 2025. The news read by Olive Rujizo. Here are the news headlines. Citizens vow to resist ZANU-PF's 2030 agenda. No bid tenders expose government corruption. And former aide to late MDC T President Tsvangirai found dead. And now for the news in detail. Citizens across Zimbabwe and abroad have vowed to fight and resist ZANU-PF's 2030 agenda, which is being fronted by a few greedy politicians, including ZANU-PF's proxy, Sengenzo Chabangu, and his cabal. In a bid to resist this agenda, which aims to mutilate the constitution and a group of over 50 members of parliament, led by Senator Jameson Timber, met in Harare on Wednesday, where a resolution to mobilize citizens to resist the 2030 agenda was made. Change Radio spoke to some of the citizens who vowed to fight the 2030 agenda. A fresh storm is brewing over government corruption as Paul Tsvangirai, a close ally of President Mnangagwa, has been handed yet another lucrative state tender, this time to construct 50,000 houses for war veterans. The deal, announced by local government minister Daniel Garwe, will see Tsvangirai company Prevail Group identify and service housing stands across the country. Critics say the project is part of a growing trend of no-bid tenders being awarded to political connected individuals under Mnangagwa's so-called presidential schemes. Tsvangirai, who already benefits from several state contracts, including the presidential borehole and solar programs, is being accused of profiteering through cronyism while sidelining transparency and public accountability. Calls are growing for the government to explain why one company is repeatedly handpicked for billion-dollar projects without open tender processes. Rangarira Spencer Ndemera, a former aide to the late MDC President Tsvangirai, was found dead in his Glenview home. Police are investigating his murder, which allegedly occurred after he confronted tenants over rent arrears at a property where he acted as caretaker. Change Radio's Kokelani Tsame spoke to Yokai Chinembiri, Ndemera's niece, who had this to say.
We apologize, but we do not have Yokai Chinembiri Ndemera's audio at hand right now.
Also, former councillor for Glenview's Wards 30, Mr. Victor Chifojga, said.
Victor Chifojga, former councillor Ward 30. Ndakashanda na Spencer, ndakakura na Spencer kubva tichiri vana vadiki chaivo. Takadzidza tese kuprimary, tikazosiyana takuenda kusekondari. Spencer akanga ari munhu akanaka. Spencer akanga ari munhu wevana. Spencer akanga asingasarudze vekutamba navo. Spencer arwadzisa. Ndosaka muri kuona parufu rwake pari kuuya vanhu vakasiyana siyana. Vanodhakwa, vanoenda kuchechi, vakadi. So ndozvinoratidza kuti Spencer anga ari munhu wevana. Spencer takatanga tese tichangobva kuchikoro kuita zvemusangano weMDC. Spencer akanga ari wesecurity, ndo mafirst bodyguard ava former president vedu Tsvangirai. Spencer akanga ari bodyguard remunhu wese. Spencer aiti akanzwa paita dambudziko remunhu weopposition, ndo vanhu vaitanga kusvika kunobatsira. Spencer akanga ari mubatsiri. Spencer akanga meno ndomu explaina ndichiti chii, but Spencer akanga ari munhu akanakisisa zvimwe zvisingaiti. arwadzisa Spencer mukuna tese nana mai ngahama takakura taita kunge vana vevanhu 1 takanosangana kunze uku nenyaya yekuti takakura tese tiri muGlenview tichidanana. Spencer akanga ane rudo rwakanga inaruka. Kana pakada kuitika zvinoizwa waiona Spencer achibva aisuduruka nekuti zvino zvakanga zvisiri mahari. Anga ari munhu kuchengetedza peace, aida peace. Spencer chero kana Zanu yakachida kurovana nevanhu, Spencer aienda kunotaura navo kuti chii chambonetsa kuti musvike pakurovana munyaya dzepolitics. Waiona vanhu vakutotanga kutomwa vese doro veZanu MDC muGlenview nekuburikidza nema-initiatives aitwa naSpencer ekutaurirana kuti aiwa kurovana hakusi kunosorova nyaya yedu. Kurovana chati kurwira chacho hapana, tese pane vari kuti takagara zvakanaka, kwoita vari kuti hatinogara zvakanaka. Saka munovera nei? Ngatitaurirane tionesane tiende mberi. Saka Spencer achivadzisa mafiro ake hapana angachifungira kuti achafa nemafiro akadai so ekupondwa. Spencer akarohwa akapondwa, aenda nobvunza mari yake yerendi pamba pemaroja panogara maroja, imba yavo yemunasainde frame panogara maroja. Achivunza mari yake yerendi ndo kumurova Spencer. Spencer atirwadzisa zoro, toti Spencer zoro ramurugare, famba zvakanaka Spencer. Aiwa mai wavatisira, mai vanga vasunzwa mushe ndo vanga vakavatarisa nesu tichasara tichivatarisa Spencer. Nemwana wako nevazukuru vako vakasiwa nehanzvadzi dzako, rudo rwakanga unaro nevanhu ivavo tichangoramba tichiriisawo kwavari. Ndinotenda Spencer munguva yatakanga tiri tose yatakafamba tese, zoro ramurugare shamwari.
Ndemera was laid to rest today at Zororo Cemetery in Chitungwiza. May his soul rest in peace. Yesterday was National Cultural Month launch in Ward 32 in Chiredzi at Rusununguko Clinic. Running under the theme Celebrating Indigenous Voices, the launch was expected to attract participants from all over the country. But nothing about Indigenous voices was talked about, confirmed or conferred by Mr. Mnangagwa and his visiting cabal. In fact, the event looked more of a ZANU-PF propaganda agenda than a national cultural event, as there was neither a recognition of local Indigenous leadership nor representative of the constituency in Parliament, Honorable Ropafadzo Makumire, who is a CCC Member of Parliament. In Zimbabwe, politics is no longer just the art of the possible. It has become the science of the scam. From boreholes to buses, roads to title deeds, today's government is not merely corrupt, but it's clearly packaged corruption. It is a fine-tuned kleptocratic theater where ribbon-cutting, camouflage, looting, and presidential schemes are just elaborate excuses to raid the national cookie jar. The regime, desperate for legitimacy, both locally and abroad, has become addicted to the illusion of action. But behind the dramatic drone shots and loud press statements is a simple truth. Zimbabwe is not being governed. It's being defrauded. Teachers under the Federation of Zimbabwe Educators Union, 4ZEU, have notified the government about their intention to embark on an indefinite strike starting Tuesday. Teachers are citing unresolved grievances and demanding improved working conditions and a salary increment. Teachers under the Federation of Zimbabwe Educators Union demand a salary of $1,250 per month. The umbrella body brings together the Amalgamated Rural Teachers Union of Zimbabwe, R2s, the Education Union of Zimbabwe, the Professional Educators Union of Zimbabwe, and the Zimbabwe Visually Impaired Teachers Union. They held a meeting in Harare on Wednesday where they resolved to down tools. Teachers have been bemoaning poor working conditions and low salaries over the years. They say the National Joint Negotiating Council, NJNC, is failing to yield results in terms of reaching an amicable agreement over their grievances. In a letter dated 21 May 2025, addressed to Primary and Secondary Education Minister Torerai Moyo, FOZEU Secretary General Obit Masaraure, who is also leader of ATUS, said the union would pursue legal avenues to ensure the rights of its members were respected. Let's hear from FOZEU Secretary General Obit Masaraure speaking with our news reporter Kokelani Kame.
The trade unions who are affiliated to the Federation of Zimbabwe Educators Union met in Harare, made a solid declaration that all the unions under FOZEU, which include the Amalgamated Rural Teachers Union of Zimbabwe, the Education Union of Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwe Visually Impaired Teachers Union, and the Professional Educators Union of Zimbabwe, who join in definite strike, which will begin on Tuesday, the 27th of May. The demand is very clear. The demand is that the teachers of Zimbabwe want a fair wage, a minimum of 1,260. The strike action is a response to the insult that came from the NJNC meeting, in which government declared that they have no fiscal space to pay civil servants' salaries, to improve civil servants' salaries. It is common knowledge that the Zimbabwean government currently has fiscal space. The Minister of Finance recently declared some surplus. The government is also seeing dishing out a lot of money. We have seen the money that has been spent on one citizen, a lot. We have seen the amount of money that have been spent on like 1.9 billion for some fictitious shares just spent on Tsvangirai. So there's a lot of money being thrown around. So our demands for fair wages are not outrageous. We understand the economic environment. We also understand the basket of needs. It is outrageous for the government of Zimbabwe to continuously refer to IMF prescriptions when it comes to our salaries. We do not report to the IMF. The government is duty bound by Section 65(1) of the Republic to pay fair wages. Every worker have a right to a fair wage, and the strike action beginning the 27th will be indefinite and fair wages paid.
In economic news, the state has withdrawn charges against Jacob Ngarivume and Kevin Gonde. He was arrested on 2 August 2024 and spent 3 months at Chikurubi Maximum Prison whilst the state was opposing bail. He remained in remand since coming to court every 2 weeks. After a year of persecution, they withdrew the charges. He says he was never at the said meeting because he is not a member of the CCC party. They knew it, but rather they have always chosen to persecute him. He stands up for corruption, said Ngarivume. He appreciated all citizens who stood with him throughout the unjust and cruel persecution. He also appreciated his legal team, Tonderai Batasara, and the Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, ZLHR, who supported his fight against the senseless persecution. In news from local communities, the local journalist Carol Tsitsimarufu, aged 37, is appealing for $6,000 to undergo a surgical operation for a life-threatening chronic neurological condition. The severe disorder has caused her severe bleeding problems, resulting in mental, vision, reading, and speech difficulties. She is appealing to anyone who can help to contact her on +263 772 845 714. I repeat, +263 772 845 714. This is a clarion call for desperate, urgent assistance. The Gweru High Court has handed down lengthy prison sentences on 2 Shurugwi men in separate murder cases involving petty disputes yesterday. Lloyd Shova, a 25-year-old from Nidza village in Chirungwi, has been sentenced to 20 years in prison for murder by the High Court in Gweru, a conviction that stems from a fatal stabbing incident on December 16, 2018, which unfolded after he allegedly stole $9 from a local homestead. At least 3,320 pregnant girls dropped out of both secondary and primary schools in 2024 across the country, according to Deputy Minister of Education, Angeline Gata. In our international news, the issue of children born in South Africa by foreign parents is giving the Home Affairs Department in South Africa a headache. According to the Deputy Minister of Home Affairs, Njabulo Mzuza, birth certificates are only issued to South Africans, and for foreign nationals, they are issued with notices of birth. He said this among rising concerns about documentation fraud and misinterpretation about illegal immigration. He said they are developing systems where a parent can register using fingerprints and instant online verification. According to the department, they are on an ongoing drive to register South Africans who were never added to the National Population Register. 6 people were caught last night after shooting a 73-year-old Herbert Nyoni, who is said to be a foreign national from Zimbabwe who is based in South Africa and has been there for 34 years. They got to his house after the old man got his road accident fund money, which is said to be over 4,100 million rand, which he had to share, which he had to share with some of his lawyers. They broke into his house and took over 14,000 rand, which he wanted to send to his family in Zimbabwe. They shot him because he refused to give them the PIN number to his bank card. Unfortunately, the old man passed away on the scene and the 3 people were caught by the community, but subsequently the community released them because they were South African citizens. Finally, in sports news, Burkina Faso coach Brahma Traore has named a 27-man squad for next month's friendly against Zimbabwe in Morocco. The team features mostly foreign-based players, including Edmund Tapotsa of Bayer Leverkusen and Ajax striker Bertrand Traore. Wolverhampton's Nasser Diga is also in the squad and could face his club teammates Zimbabwe's Marshall Munetsi and Tawanda Chirewa. The Stallions will also play Tunisia during the same international break. To end the bulletin, here are the headlines once again. Outrage over Chabangu's Agenda 2030 deal. No bid tenders expose government corruption, and former aide to late MDC T President Tsvangirai found dead. This concludes our bulletin. Thank you for listening. From myself, Olive, and the entire team at Change Radio, have a blessed weekend.